Good morning, everyone. I will be opening our first budget meeting of the 2025 season, and we will just go ahead. Oh, we will go ahead and open this meeting. It is April 30th, our first budget meeting of 2025, and my name is Commissioner Courtney Bangs for District 4, and we will just begin with introductions. And my world is going to get real loud here for just a half second as our kindergarten exits. So I'm going to put myself on mute. And if we can go ahead and start with Commissioner Thompson for introductions. Thank you.
Good morning, Leanne Thompson, Clatsop County Commissioner, District 5. Happy to be here with everyone. Thank you.
Do we have Commissioner Webb today?
I did not hear from Commissioner Webb.
Commissioner Wakua? Okay. And I know that Commissioner Quayla had a conflicting meeting this morning. So let's go ahead. Next on our list, could we start with our budget committee members? I saw Mr. Ozier online here, if we can start there.
Yes, I'm David Ozier, and I am a citizen budget member.
Welcome. And I apologize. Let me see. I see Clara online. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Clara Srofe. I'm a citizen committee member from District 5.
Ms. Montero, I see you.
I don't know what you see, but because I'm in my car driving to North Bend. Tita Montero, citizen budget member.
I'm going to scroll through the Brady bunch here. There's Lindsay Davis. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Lindsay Davis, Hampton Lumber, Citizen Budget Committee.
And my screen is very tiny. Am I missing somebody from the budget committee?
Commissioner, I will just also recognize that we do have some folks from our district budget committees as well, from the Rural Law Enforcement District for the reading of the district budget message as well. So Mike Carter and Colin Cummings are also on the line.
Excellent. And do we have any other folks prior to passing this on to County Manager to introduce? I see Sheriff online. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Good morning.
This is going to be a party. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass this on to County Manager. Thank you all for being here today. And if we have any other commissioners pop online, if anybody sees them, can we just make note of it? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Bangs. Good morning, everybody. I want to start off by just thanking everyone for their participation in the budget process and certainly for today. So hats off to the Board of Commissioners, budget committee members, and all the staff that are joining us. We're actually going to kick off first with, I believe, Andy Sullivan is going to kick us off. And this will be kind of a multifaceted show here with Andy leading the way most of the time, and then Monica and I filling in. The goal for today is just to really introduce at a high level the proposed 25-26 budget. And then obviously there'll be plenty of opportunity for questions and answers as we move forward. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Andy.
Thank you, County Manager. I'm going to pass it over to the County Manager to kind of kick it off.
So I'm going to go ahead and just kick things off. And I do also want to recognize that we have DA Ron Brown as another elected official on here. So as Dawn mentioned, this is a process that takes many. And so we appreciate all of those who have helped. And we're going to kick it off first with just a budget process overview. And so this just kind of talks about the process of an annual county budget and how to read through the county's budget based on the functional areas and the information that is in each of these sections. And then we'll get into the countywide budget message, as well as the budget message for the 4 service districts. And so with that being said, we will turn it over to Andy now to go into the budget orientation. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Like Monica said, I was going to start off and touch on some of the items related to budget law and go over the 4 parts of the budget process. Some of the important objectives of budget law are to establish procedures for the preparation, presentation, administration, and appraisal of the budget. And we're here to provide estimates of revenues, expenditures, and the proposed taxes, as well as a brief description of the programs and the fiscal policy to accomplish these programs, as well as provide methods for obtaining public views in the preparation of fiscal policy and to enable the public taxpayers and investors to be apprised of the financial policies and administration of the county. In front of you, you have the 4 steps of the budget process, but budgeting is a continuous process that has a 12-month cycle to completion with 4 parts. The preparation of the budget is guided by the board's adopted budget policies. Thorough reviews and discussions are conducted with staff to account for all items that will impact the budget. And through that process, the proposed budget is created and submitted to the budget committee for review and approval. Once approved, the budget is submitted to the Board of Commissioners for adoption, and the execution of the budget is incorporated in the daily operations, services, and decision-making performed by staff with the guidance of county leadership and the Board of Commissioners. So to go over some of the budget committee roles and responsibilities, all the members of the budget committee have the same degree of authority and responsibility. The Board of Commissioners appoints 5 budget committee members who serve for a 3-year term. The primary duties and functions of this committee are to hear the budget message, consider the budget proposed and comments made by the public, and make revisions as necessary. When satisfied, the committee approves the budget, and we specify the rate and the amount of the ad valorem taxes. The appointed budget committee members are set the stipend for the Board of Commissioners, and the elected DA and sheriff salaries are set by the commission after the approval of the budget committee. Upon approval of the budget, the appointed budget committee role is complete, and the board will hold a public meeting on June 11th. At the conclusion of the hearing on June 11th, the board will adopt the annual budget. So there are a lot of factors that dictate where and how the county must budget resources. And in front of you is just a list of the services the county is required by law to provide. So services such as elections, health services, land use planning, law enforcement and jail management, property deed recording and survey mapping, road construction and maintenance, and tax assessment and collection. Now, I'm sure everyone has gone through the 600-page document and is well acquainted with the layout of the document. But this is the format of the budget document, and we'll be touching on each of these categories throughout the budget message. The one item that I wanted to mention is our intentions are to review the county-wide budget by the functional areas rather than the individual department level, in the effort to focus some of our discussions most relevant to the county and to bring forth items of significance and materiality. The Budget Committee is also encouraged to bring forth items that might be at a more granular level for further discussion. And with that, I will hand it back to Monica to go into the budget message.
Thanks, Andy. If you want to go ahead and kick on to the next slide, we already did introductions, but we just want everybody to recognize again who our budget committee consists of, from the citizen committee membership as well as our Board of Commissioners and the districts with which they all represent. We also want to recognize our management team. It isn't without approximately 6 months worth of effort by all of these folks, as well as staff within their departments who help them compile this information, as well as monitor it throughout the year. And so we want to thank all of our department heads and managers who helped bring this information in a timely manner, so that way we could get you all the document in a timely manner to review. And I'm going to go ahead now and turn it over to Don to share his message with you all.
Thanks, Monica. So part of my job this morning is to kind of give a broad overview of where the county is and some of the challenges that we're facing. We've described these in the budget message, in the budget binder, but it's a continuation of many of the topics that we talked about last year. What I will say as a little preview is that, Clatsop County is not unique in the challenges that we're facing. Right now, we know that approximately 60% of Oregon counties are facing a deficit going into the 25-26 fiscal year, and about a third of Oregon cities. So there are challenges for all local governments. I will talk a little bit about, what some of those challenges are. What our goal was going into the budget was to present a budget that at the end of fiscal year 25-26 had the revenues and the expenditures, equal each other as much as possible. We have done that. We are trying to preserve the reserve, which we have a goal of 30%, a minimum of 20%. And this is for the general fund because that is the discretionary part of the organization that the board and the budget committee have a lot of discretion on. But we know as we move forward that this is going to be a continual calibration of the county's budget as we move forward. We monitor 365 days a year. We make decisions throughout, and that will continue. And we will be sure to keep the board and the budget committee aware of what those decisions are as we enter into the actual execution part of the 25-26 budget. You can go ahead, Andy. Thanks. So this is just a summary of the general fund as it is in the budget documents. I'm going to walk through this a little bit because it can get a little confusing. At the first column for fiscal year 24-25, this is what we are forecasting for June 30th of 2025. So we anticipate ending the fiscal year June 30th, 2025 with a 37% fund balance. For next year's budget, we are showing the revenues, expenses, and we're showing a reduction in the reserves, and that those reserves would be 28%. But what we've talked about before is that we actually anticipate and plan for expenditure rate of about 90%. And so we are not like the federal government and potentially other local governments where the assumption is that organizations and departments will expend their entire budget. We actually, as part of our budget policies, expect expenditures to be underexpended at the appropriated level. So based upon historical spending levels, we are anticipating ending the 25-26 fiscal year, so June 30th of 26, with a 38% fund balance, which is a little bit higher than we're anticipating now. Again, we are carrying a higher fund balance than what the board's policy requires, which is a 30% goal, because of the uncertainty that I'm going to talk a little bit about as I move forward in the presentation. So some of the headwinds that we continually are experiencing, we have inflation, impacts of tourism, and impacts of tourism for the county really focus on those public safety related services. We still have some uncertainties about the HCP and the impact on county and special district revenues. We have ongoing economic uncertainty, but we are attempting to be proactive at the county level by really focusing on economic development. Economic development then provides AV growth, which then provides additional tax revenue. And then the other kind of new phenomenon is the federal funding uncertainty. There's just a lot that is happening at the federal level. We're not sure where it's all going to come out, but we're certainly watching, advocating for the county at the federal funding level. So as we navigate the headwinds with the leadership of the board, we've been very active legislatively and administratively for the county's priorities. We have made many trips to Salem, trips to Washington, D.C., working hard to make sure that folks understand what our small part of the world requires in terms of support. We've been focusing, as I mentioned earlier, on economic development, generating local revenues, and part of that is to have more flexibility with the revenues we are getting from the state. We are restructuring and reorganizing service delivery where that makes sense and where it creates economy and efficiency, and you'll see that in the budget also. And then there have been selective expenditure reductions throughout the budget, and that includes FTE and materials and supplies, which I'll talk a little bit about next. So on the staffing side, we are proposing a budget that reduces staff by about 7 FTE total, which is just under 3% of our total staffing. Roughly 6 of those FTE are in the general fund. You know, all the positions in the county are always important and they provide benefit. We were looking at some of the vacant positions and evaluating whether or not there could be a deferral and so wait to hire or to temporarily eliminate to see what happens through the legislative budget allocation process, the federal allocation process, and other demands that are placed on the county. So we have reduced staffing for the 25-26 fiscal year. Again, we've looked at organizational realignment, one of those being a consolidation of 2 of our departments. We're consolidating the Department of Juvenile Services and Public Health into a Department of Health and Human Services. And then, of course, given all the uncertainty at the state and the federal levels, what we do know is that we can't use county resources, locally generated revenues to backfill what's lost in federal or state funding. On the revenue side, one of our goals has been to facilitate AV growth. And again, that is done by really new development, which the biggest impact on new development would be on the industrial side. And so there's been a lot of effort to support some of the big projects, whether it is Tongue Point, whether it's some of the enterprise zone work that the counties and the sponsoring agencies have been doing. Generating jobs, generating AV is an important part of what the county does and what we'll have to continually do to really make the budget work as we move forward. The other that we've talked about a lot, we talked about it last year, is the transient lodging tax. What the county has been asking for through the legislative process is additional flexibility in how the county expends revenues that are already collected. So not expanding the revenue base, but just spending it differently because there are restrictions for post-2003 taxes. 70% is dedicated to tourism promotion and facilities and 30% is discretionary. We would like to have those tourist impacted counties to have more flexibility. So we're still working through the legislative process. There's still an avenue for some flexibility to be created during this session, but obviously with everything legislative, it's uncertain at this time how that's going to play out. The board has had a first hearing of an ordinance that would increase the transient lodging tax by 2 cents countywide, and that is available if the legislature isn't able to find a way to help these highly impacted counties through modification to the formula. So, and then we're obviously always advocating for the county when it comes to state funding and making sure that the state is funding those programs that they have made a commitment to, and that includes assessment and taxation. It includes community corrections, and it includes many other programs, public health. So that's an ongoing advocacy role that the county plays. My assessment overall is that the county continues to be in a strong place. We are making some of those difficult decisions that we need to make to provide flexibility moving forward. So this is an expenditure challenge and it's a revenue challenge. And we are approaching it from both sides as we move forward. But if we can maintain that fund balance at around 38% moving forward into the 26-27 fiscal year, it'll give us time, again, as I always say, to have the runway necessary to make adjustments as we need to. So you can go to the next slide, Andy. So this is just a summary of everything that I just said. We're going to continue to thoughtfully manage the budget. We will make decisions that we need to make mid-year to make sure that we end up where we need to be by the end of the year. We will continually look at vacant positions. We will continually look at revenue sources, and we'll have a strong advocacy presence in Salem and in Washington, D.C. As we move forward. But this is, again, it's not a one-year challenge. This is going to be a continual challenge for us. Ultimately, there are some decisions that the legislature is going to need to wrestle with regarding local government financing. And I think that the legislature at some point in the future will be poised to ask some of those questions, whether it's on the taxation side or on the distribution of state revenues to counties and special districts. So there'll be much more coming, but we have put together a budget that complies with the board budget policies and maintains the flexibility of the runway that we need going forward. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Andy, who will walk through the actual budget numbers.
Thank you, County Manager. So we wanted to begin viewing the county-wide budget at a fairly high level, and we'll take some steps down from there to address the general fund as well as the individual functional areas. Consideration of the budget policies as well as the current economic climate and uncertainties around harvesting levels with the proposed HCP are all important factors in developing the 25-26 budget. The total proposed budget, excluding the 4 service districts, is approximately $116.3 million as compared to last year's adopted budget of approximately $98.5 million, which represents an increase of $17.8 million or 18% increase from the previous year. The proposed increase is primarily a result of a $14 million BRIC grant anticipated to be received as federal pass-through funds for the disaster mitigation project with Columbia Memorial Hospital, as well as approximately $2.7 million in state pass-through funds dedicated to social support services. And those are specific to shelter and rehousing the unhoused population, and mental health. Now, while there's some uncertainties concerning the BRIC grant in relation to the various freezes being put on federal funds, the county is still budgeting for the project, and we will be monitoring the situation very closely, along with emergency management, as well as Columbia Memorial Hospital. Cost-saving efforts are reflected in the decrease of materials and services of approximately $700,000, or a -4%, which can be contributed to the collective efforts of the county staff to identify cost savings within operations to achieve a balanced budget. The capital outlay budget increased by approximately $798,000 over the prior year and is primarily contributed to the proposed construction of the Westport Bypass Road to help eliminate the truck traffic in those residential areas. The decrease in transfers of approximately $1 million is a byproduct of the decreased need to utilize the general fund stabilization funds to balance the budget. And again, this is largely contributed to the cost-saving efforts collectively made by county staff. Consequently, contingency will increase by about $700,000 or 2.8% and is also related to not having to utilize the general fund stabilization funds. Personnel services account for approximately 43% of the county-wide budget, and it's the county's most valuable resource. While personnel services is increasing by about $1 million or 2.6%, the increase is mainly associated with the negotiated cost of living adjustment, which is currently projected at 3%, as well as healthcare and retirement costs. However, it is important to acknowledge the county's overall FTE will decrease by 7 FTE, and as a result of not filling certain positions or leaving vacant positions open for longer in the effort to realize cost savings. Looking at some of the revenues, the proposed budget includes an increase in the current year of approximately $17.6 million. And while the majority of this increase can be contributed to the BRIC grant, as mentioned previously, the other factors that play a role are the projected increases in taxes based on a 4% AV growth and additional developments coming onto the tax roll, projected increase in state revenue pass-through funds of $2 million related to sheltering and rehousing the unhoused population and mental health. Some of those increases are offset by decreases in the transfers line of $790,000, which is primarily attributable to the decrease in the need to utilize the general fund stabilization funds. We'll take a step down and look at the general fund. So for the general fund revenue, the revenue is expected to see an increase of approximately $692,000, or 2.3%. The overall increase can be contributed to the projected 4% AV growth in property taxes, as well as additional revenue associated with jail bed leases with the sheriff's office, franchise fee revenue associated with the solid waste franchise, and the anticipated increase in the countywide TLT for half of the fiscal year, either by legislative change or local rate increase. Some of these increases are offset by decreases in state revenue as a result of prior one-time program funding and a decrease in transfers due to a decrease in the need to utilize the general fund stabilization funds. Looking at the expenditures, personnel services are increasing the general fund from the current year by approximately $678,000 or 2.6%, and is related to the projected cost of living adjustment to employee wages by 3% in accordance with the bargaining unit contracts based on the anticipated CPI for the West region. These increases are also offset by recognizing cost savings related to either leaving various positions vacant longer or unfilled. The decrease of $632,000 or 9.3% is seen in the materials and services budget, which is primarily a result of cost controls by departments to realize savings. And the $49,000 decrease in contingency is based on board policy that 10% of the general fund expenditures are reserved in contingency. Therefore, decreased expenditures will result in a decreased contingency amount. One of the cornerstones to maintaining the county's financial stability over the years has been the board policy of establishing a minimum reserve level of 20% of the general fund budgeted expenditures, with the goal of maintaining the reserve within a range of 20 to 30%. The slide in front of you is a forecasted projection of the general fund's fund balance over the next 5 years following the 25-26 fiscal year. And these projections are based on historical data and the most current information available for future planning. Staff recognize our goals as good stewards of county resources to maintain the county's long-term financial stability while still maintaining quality service and service levels in a transparent and fiscally responsible manner, as well as in accordance with the Board of Commissioners' adopted budget policies and resource management strategies. So the county budget is categorized into the 5 functional areas that you see in front of you. A functional area can be defined as a logical grouping of activities or processes of an organization representing similar business goals or functions. Each functional area includes the proposed budgets that comprise the functional area, and greater detailed information of the county's individual budgets can be found under each of the functional area tabs. While the budget has increased from the previous year, as stated previously, the inclusion of the BRIC grant is largely what has contributed to the increase and is reflected in the functional area of land use, housing, transportation, economic development, and capital. Additionally, approximately $3 million of social support funding is being recategorized from general government and placed into the functional area of the land use, housing, transportation, economic development, and capital, as this functional area is more reflective of the usage for these funds. Though there is a proposed reduction of 7 FTE, ongoing increases associated with cost of living adjustments to employees' wages in accordance with bargaining unit contracts, as well as budget increases for costs of health insurance and retirement, still present ongoing challenges. And while there are many challenges the county as an organization faces, it's through the collective efforts with our partner agencies that also provide many opportunities that have been identified through the board's strategic planning process that will continue to be addressed and been accounted for in the proposed budget. To further address the functional areas, we have a few short video clips that will briefly summarize the budgets for each area. And we will start with public safety and justice.
Clatsop County's Public Safety and Justice budget for 2025-2026 invests $27.9 million to ensure community safety and justice. This supports the District Attorney's Office for Criminal Prosecution, the Sheriff's Office for Law Enforcement, Juvenile and Probation Services, Courthouse Security, Animal Control, and Emergency Management. It also funds the Medical Examiner and investigations. Together, these services keep our community safe, secure, and supported.
We wanted to thank our senior communication specialist, Jen Benoit, for the help with those video clips. I could not do that. I do not have those skills, so thank you, Jen. So to touch on the public safety and justice functional area, this represents the proposed budgets for the funds and organizational units that are responsible for or related to community safety and security within the law and justice system and emergency response. The proposed budgets for the next fiscal year reflects an increase of $1 million or 3.7% from the previous fiscal year and is mainly associated with the cost of living adjustment of 3%. The resources that fund these services are split 51% as dedicated and 49% as discretionary. And next functional area, we have public health.
Clatsop County's public health budget of $9.5 million for 2025-2026 supports essential services to keep our community healthy. Programs include immunizations, maternal and child health, WIC nutritional assistance, family planning, and tobacco prevention. The budget also funds emergency preparedness and mobile health clinics to ensure care reaches vulnerable populations. These services focus on prevention, education, and improving access to care for all residents.
Thank you, Jen. The public health functional area consists of both mental health aspects as well as community public health. 98% of the funding is received and is dedicated and federal grant resources and fee revenues. The remaining 2% comes from the transfer in of discretionary general fund resources. This is a relatively status quo budget and reflects an increase in expenditures of approximately $175,000 from the current year, which is primarily a result of increased pass-through funding for mental health services. Depending on actual grant awards, these budgets can fluctuate from their adopted levels and are monitored closely throughout the fiscal year to make any necessary adjustments. Next functional area is general government.
Clatsop County's general government budget of $24.3 million for 2025-2026 supports core operations, governance, and public services with 52% discretionary and 48% dedicated funding. Key areas include the Board of Commissioners, property assessment and taxation, elections, property management, and administrative functions like human resources and financial planning. With funding from property taxes, timber receipts, and grants, this functional area ensures efficient county management, legal compliance, and essential services for residents.
Okay. The proposed budget for general government has decreased by $3.1 million and is primarily the result of approximately $3 million of social support funding being recategorized from general government and placed into the functional area of land use, housing, transportation, economic development, and capital, as this functional area is more reflective of the usage and the nature of those funds. Overall, this is a relatively status quo budget. Our next functional area is land use, housing, transportation, and economic development.
Clatsop County's $50.9 million land use, housing, transportation, economic development, and capital budget for 2025-26 invests in the community's growth and sustainability. This includes housing initiatives, safe and modernized roads, economic development through tourism and local business support, and infrastructure projects like the Westport Bypass Road. By updating zoning codes, enhancing affordable housing, and improving public transportation, the county is building a thriving future for its residents.
So as mentioned previously, the majority of federal and state pass-through funds are reflected within this functional area and are the main drivers for the increase. Overall, this functional area is increasing by approximately $19.5 million from the current year. And as stated previously, the majority of that is a result of the budgeting for the BRIC grant. Most of the remaining funds that make up this functional area are status quo. Next, we have culture and recreation.
Clatsop County's 2025-2026 budget invests $3.6 million in culture and recreation, maintaining parks, trails, and event spaces for the community. The Fair and Expo hosts major events like the Clatsop County Fair and Seafood and Wine Festival, while the Parks Department manages 12 parks across 573 acres. Funding also supports trail improvements, dock repairs, and facility upgrades. With 94% of funds dedicated, these investments ensure accessible recreation, community engagement, and the preservation of public spaces for future generations.
So the cultural and recreation functional area is almost entirely funded through dedicated resources, with only 6.5% of expenditures being covered by discretionary funding sources. The proposed expenditure budget reflects an increase of approximately $94,000 from the current year and is attributable to the cost of living adjustments and a slight increase in materials and services for the Fair and Expo budget. Moving forward, we will go into the service districts.
Clatsop County's 2025-2026 Service Districts budget totals $11.1 million, supporting essential community services with all dedicated funds. This includes rural law enforcement, maintenance of 225 miles of roads, sewer services in Westport, and 4-H and OSU Extension education programs. These service districts support vital infrastructure and community programs, contributing to public safety, transportation, environmental health, and education across Clatsop County.
So kind of as Jen already stated there, the service district consists of the Rural Law Enforcement District, Road District number 1, the Westport Sewer Service District, and the 4-H and Extension Program. While these are legally separate districts, the board is ultimately responsible for final approval of these budgets. The 4 districts' budgets total $11.1 million for fiscal year 25-26, which is a decrease of approximately $79,000. It is primarily attributed to a decrease in capital outlay in the Westport Sewer District and a decrease in special payments to the General Road Fund within the county-wide budget. We'll kind of take a step down and look at these individually. So looking at the Rural Law Enforcement District, the RLED budget for 25-26 provides funding for Sheriff's Office services for rural areas of the county and supported by a property tax levy as well as timber revenue. This budget reflects an increase of $158,000 from the 24-25 budget, which is mainly contributed to the cost of living adjustment. The personnel costs within this budget support the Sheriff's Criminal, Administrative Support, and Marine Patrol divisions. Looking at Road District number 1, the Road District budget for 25-26 allocates resources to the county for road maintenance and construction, as discussed in the Road Maintenance Construction section of this budget, which can be found on page 369 of the budget document. The fund receives revenues from 2 main sources, being a property tax levy as well as timber revenue. The overall budget decreased by approximately $291,000 and is a result of a projected decrease in the beginning fund balance. Looking at Westport Sewer District, Westport Sewer Service District budget for 25-26 reflects a decrease of approximately $175,000 due to a decrease in capital outlays. This is a little background. In the current year of 24-25, we had ARPA funds that were available to use for the replacement of aging infrastructure at the treatment plant. However, in 25-26, those ARPA funds have been spent down and are no longer available. In addition to grant funds, this district is supported 100% by user fees. The Clatsop County contracts with Oregon State University to provide 4-H and extension program services throughout the county. Their focus is to provide research-based knowledge and education that is focused on strengthening communities and economies, sustaining natural resources, and promoting healthy families and individuals. This budget is supported by a property tax levy, as well as timber revenue. The 25-26 budget reflects an increase in total expenditures of approximately $229,000 and is a result of a higher beginning balance. So with that, that covers all the countywide, the general fund, and each respective functional area. So just kind of in closing, just wanted to mention, the proposed budget strikes a balance between meeting current service and service level demands and maintaining prudent reserve levels in anticipation of potential impacts on future revenues. As our county manager mentioned previously, county management will continue to monitor any number of external factors and make prudent adjustments mid-year as information is available. And as a reminder, the budget process is a team effort and reflects many hours of hard work on the part of the board of commissioners, the budget committee, and the county staff. We are a proud team in service to the Clatsop community, and we have a responsibility and obligation to the residents of Clatsop County to ensure we are meeting the various needs of the community. The objective for the 25-26 annual budget was to ensure revenues would equal expenditures, and through the collective efforts of staff countywide, we have fulfilled that undertaking. I certainly want to commend our staff and extend my appreciation to everyone who rose up to some of the challenges that were encountered throughout the preparation of the annual budget. It really is a privilege to work alongside our team of talented professionals throughout the county. We're very, very proud. And with that, I am happy to take any questions or if there's any final thoughts or comments.
Commissioner Thompson?
Okay, I got really excited in the middle of that because in those awesome video clips, there was a picture of a very handsome dog being walked in front of Clatsop County Animal Shelter. Riggs is now Oliver Rigsby Wyatt, and he lives with my sweet husband and me. Thank you. It was a fur baby moment that just had me excited. You know what? It really is not just the numbers, but it's how we live together and take care of each other. So thanks to staff, thanks to the committee members. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I see another hand raised. Clara?
Yeah, so I'm concerned about that big grant. I know you guys said that you're working on trying to see if we can get it again, but the last news I heard is that that program's been canceled. So moving forward, if we do not receive that money, which repeatedly in your message, it said it included that as a major portion of that chunk of funding, how will that affect this if it never comes in?
So in general terms, it won't impact the county directly. The county is merely a conduit for those grant funds, and we work alongside in tandem with Columbia Memorial Hospital. I didn't know if Monica, do you want to expand on that?
Sure. I can touch on it a little bit. There still are conversations that are happening. And like Andy mentioned, we're a conduit. So this is pass-through funding. And so if the funding never comes to fruition, then it never gets passed through. However, if it does come to fruition, it's easier to have it in the budget already. And then that way we aren't having to delay the process at all to pass those funds through to Columbia Memorial Hospital. So again, if the funds don't come in, they don't get passed through, that $14 million is never received, the $14 million is never spent.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, seeing none. I don't see anything else on our agenda for this morning.
If I may, I do just want to recognize that we did have Commissioner Wakua has since joined us, as well as citizen member Stevens for the Rural Law Enforcement District. Just a reminder that you now have a week before we meet. Oh, Commissioner Wakua, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I can wait. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say that we now have a week for you all to, continue to look through the budget document. You've had it this past week. And we will meet again on Wednesday, May 7th at 10:30 a.m., again, virtually. And if you have any questions that you want to be able to ask, if you could send those to Andy ahead of time. You can also include myself as well as the county manager if you'd like. That way we can make sure if it's a little bit more complicated question that we have to do research on, we can do so thoroughly and address those on Wednesday. So again, don't hesitate to email or call and ask those questions. And our next meeting will be where we're diving into things, beginning with the process of electing a chair and vice chair for the budget committee, and then diving through the functional areas and explaining some of those other changes that have occurred. And so, Commissioner Wakua.
I just wanted to say I'm part of several different budget committees, and after getting this 600-page booklet from Teresa, I just want to give the team kudos for this. Mr. Sullivan, excellent presentation. Thank you all for all the work you've done to put into this. I'm sure I won't understand all of it, but I'm going to do my best to interpret what I can, and I'll take any questions back to the team. So thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner.
I concur. This is a well put together budget. Any other questions? Any other items to discuss? All right, then I will adjourn this budget meeting and see you guys next time. Thank you for coming.